Today's lesson is an approach to the quartal voicings pioneered by the late, great McCoy Tyner. Just going to show some really basic ways that you can get into these voicings that are built in fourths instead of being built in thirds. The best way to do this is to listen to McCoy Tyner. Of course, he's influenced everybody since his first great recordings and had 60 years of amazing recordings that you can check out before dying this year, 2020. One of the many losses of 2020. But you can start with everything he did with John Coltrane. Some of the things that use the kind of voicings that I'm going to check out here are A Love Supreme, My Favorite Things, Impressions, Greensleeves. These are great, great recordings that you should listen to. McCoy Tyner with John Coltrane. And that being said, I will just show you some basic ways to apply this stuff. So here we go. What we're going to be working in today is exclusively in C minor Dorian, or C Dorian. Which is the same as what major scale? C Dorian is the same as B flat major. Right? It's the second mode of B flat major. Right? Okay. What's the difference between C Dorian and C minor? So here's C Dorian and C minor. So the difference is the sixth degree is natural in Dorian. Okay. All right. So here we are, C Dorian. So one of the real characteristic things is this drop into a root and a fifth, or a fifth and a root. So that establishes the key center, right? And now we're building our voicings in fourths. And so that's not a perfect fourth. Let's start with an easy one. Okay, so I'm just hitting the root in the fifth, and then in this case I'm starting from the ninth, the fifth, and the root. But really the important thing to note is that it's built in fourths. A fourth up, right? Dealing with this rhythm throughout this exercise. So that's just 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So 1, 3, and 1, 3, 4, and. Okay, when I'm swinging, so it's, you get it. So I'm just moving up this structure in parallel. So here's another. Okay, that looks like the fourth and the seventh and the third. That looks like the third and the sixth and the ninth. They all have their own character, these voicings, but the cool thing is they can be moved in parallel. Right? So how could I expand this with my right hand? Well, I could keep adding fourths. Some chromaticism. Anyway, back to the basics here. So we just have this little pattern. Let's do this. I love that one. So that's just a really simple little vamp that you can do that creates a really nice kind of colorful vibe that really brings out the Dorian-ness of this C Dorian. basic vibe. So just this and this and this, maybe a little bit of that, and C Dorian improvising in the right hand. Some of you may have noticed there were some other colors in there. So if you're already feeling like you've got enough, you can stop now. But I'm going to explain some of the other things that I was doing in there. And then you can go and listen to McCoy Tyner, who does them much better. So one thing was moving chromatically to some other keys. So, right, so I got that, but then I also went, which is just not part of that key. We'll talk about that voicing, but also half steps up and stuff like that. And then you can just shift around and use other keys. One thing McCoy Tyner does is using that kind of voicing. So I'm shifting to there. My top note is F, so I'm using an F pentatonic. Or just up a half step. Going up to C sharp Dorian, and it moves around and shifts around. That's a really advanced application. So, yeah, I encourage you to check out McCoy Tyner. Here's another one that's a little bit more basic. So here I am. So what is that? So I did 3 times kind of the same modal thing, and at the end I threw in this little turnaround. This one I learned from John Esposito, who was one of my teachers. So at the end, he did that, and then, or this. Let's stick with 3-note voicings for now. So what is that? Well, that is basically, what chord do you think it is? Well, we always look at when you hear this, it should light you up and say, that sounds like a kind of a dominant movement and a quintfala, a circle of fifths kind of movement. And it is. All right, so we've got 2 or 5 of 5 if you want, because it's dominant. 5, 1, and I'm putting a 6 on the 1 because that's the color we're dealing with right now, natural 6. So I have D7, G7, C minor 6. All right, so, but I'm adding some color to it. All right, so what's that? What is that in relation to D? We call it a sharp 9. I think it would be better described as a flat 10, but no one does that, all right? Because you have your major third, and up there you have a minor third. It's not a freaking sharp 9 because, as we'll see in a moment, this chord also already has a 9th. So I think it's more interesting to say flat. No one says that. All right, never mind. All right, and then this next one, G7, I'm adding a flat 13. Some people call it a sharp 5 or just G7 alt. So it gives us this nice turnaround, 2-5 turnaround back to our C Dorian. So let me do that in application one more time. Here we go. All right. So there it is. And what am I playing over those chords? Well, I can continue to just play C Dorian. If I work it out melodically, it doesn't really bother the ear to play C Dorian there. But there's a whole other world of possibility here. And this gets into modes of another scale. And this is what we call melodic minor harmony, all right? So I'm going to first play the scale, and then I'll explain where it comes from. So when we have this D7 sharp 9, here is a scale that will fit over that whole thing. Okay, sometimes called Superlocrian, or sometimes called the altered scale, sometimes called the diminished augmented scale. But in fact, what it is E flat melodic minor from its 7th degree. So it's the 7th mode of E flat melodic minor. Why do I say in fact what it is? I don't know. I like having systems, and this is for me a systematic way is to look at the modes of the more familiar scales. So melodic minor is pretty familiar. It just looks like a minor and then a major. Very, very comfortable scale from classical music, used to create melodies in minor that feel really natural, hence the name melodic minor. But here you have the 7th mode. So what do we have? Root, flat 2, minor 3rd, major 3rd, right? So we have both thirds, which is good because of our chord. And then tritone, augmented 6th, flat 7, 1. And then it's the same scale on that G7 flat 13. Not the same scale, but the same scale in G. So now we have 1, flat 2, minor 3, major 3, tritone, flat 13, flat 7, 1, which melodic minor is that? G Superlocrian is A flat melodic minor, okay? You might not find it that useful to think about it in terms of melodic minor. And it really, in practical terms, you just got to learn the scale. It's not about knowing that it's from melodic minor, but for me, I like to be able to systematize things and put them together. So. There's a really common shape. Major chord, but here we're going into minor, so let's just use just that stuff. So I'm going to use Dorian, 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 3 measures of just the Dorian stuff, and then I'm going to hit this turnaround and do D Superlocrian, G Superlocrian. Thanks a lot. Have fun experimenting with that. Peace.